Before we start this space, I would like to ask both of you to introduce yourselves to our audience. So first, please, Raza, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Raza. I'm currently head of DevRel at ThirdWeb. ThirdWeb is currently a platform to deploy your smart contracts with Python, JavaScript, or Golang. And we also have a no-code solution. A little bit about myself. Yeah, I'm an accountant by profession. Started coding before the pandemic, and then built a little bit of a following on Twitter, engaged with the tech Twitter community, and ever since
Mhm.
then been doing gigs as a DevRel. And yeah, that's about a little bit about me.
Okay, thank you. Kent, now you.
Yeah, hello. My name is Kent C Dodds. I'm the director of developer experience at Remix, a company that's building an open source web framework. And
Mhm.
my responsibility is everything that involves developers' experience using Remix.
Mhm. Okay, great. Thank you guys both. So today's topic is about success in DevRel. To be precise, if there is a formula of success and if it exists, what would it be? So I think that in order to try to even answer this question, we should first try to establish what the success is, or what do we see as success. So Kent, in your opinion, how do you measure success or a successful developer relations?
Yeah, well, so I want to start by saying that DevRel is not really necessarily my forte. I'm Remix is relatively new, and a lot of what I do is focus on documentation and tooling and that sort of thing. But I can give my opinions, and also I'm certainly I work hard on reaching as many people as possible to help them learn and understand what I'm trying to do. So anyway, I think that one of the like first of all, like whether you call it developer relations or developer advocacy, I think it's important to remember that we are advocates for developers within the company, which means we have to understand what the
Mm-hmm.
developers need. And so as far as success for me in developer relations, it is how effectively you're able to learn what developers need and communicate those needs to whoever prioritizes work at your company.
Okay, Raza, thank you, Kent. Raza, similar question. In your opinion, what makes a DevRel department or DevRel professional successful?
Yeah, I think like Ken said, like voicing the needs of developers and the community internally is
Hmm.
very important. And I think that, adding to that, so a DevRel has, let's say, within third, what we define as has a three-pointer focus. So community is one of them. That's what Ken just said. And I think
Hmm.
that along the way, it's education. I think success is also, very much orientated on how well did you educate the community on your product. So it's more like a dialogue. So one way of a dialogue is, hey, what does the community want? And as a dev role, you need to voice it properly, like to product engineering, and making sure that you brand yourself in such a way. And then another way of the dialogue is the other way around. It's like, hey, voicing and educating the community on how to use your platform. And I think that's another huge part of success of a dev role.
Hmm. Okay, great. But it seems to me, as an outsider, as a non-DevRel professional, that in order to be good at it, you have to constantly be able to adapt, keep an eye on the scene, and you know what has to be changed in order to improve your efforts. So, Raza, would you agree with that? And how hard it is to adapt to this ever-changing environment?
Yeah, so um, I don't think the DevRel space is new, but I do feel like it's evolving rapidly. It definitely feels like that in the Web3 space, but I think generally speaking, but that's also because a dev role doesn't fit in a traditional org. So if you look at a traditional org where you have product engineering, you have marketing, you have growth, all these like establishments, a DevRel doesn't like fit one to one in one of those pillars, I would say. So that definitely requires that, the DevRel like role needs to evolve, needs to better integrate, and like that creates an impulse that it goes very fast. But yeah, 100% it feels like the DevRel role and the position, and it requires like you're multi-skilled. So it requires like it's definitely fast-paced and ever-changing.
Okay, so Kent, okay, I understand you're not, okay, as you said, not your forte, but as a developer experience director, how hard is to stay up to date with all these changes? Our social media channels are, assume, vital, but probably other things like physical events. What is the trick to staying up to date with this changing environment?
Yeah, sure. You absolutely want to keep abreast of what's going on in the overarching world. Like that's in particular that's relevant to you and your business. If we take a step back and think about these companies that before DevRel was a thing, or companies without DevRel, the problem that they face is understanding the problems that developers are facing. And so the when you're so busy working on the product, it's very easy to build a solution to a problem that the developers don't have, or that only a small number of your customers have, or so a lot of it has to do with priorities. And then again, as Raza was talking about, the other end of it is when you build that solution, people need to understand that that solution exists and how to use it effectively. And so that's the other end of this. And then finally, as you're talking about, the landscape does seem to change a lot. And so adapting, so you know that there are problems that developers are having with whatever products that you've got. And ideas for solutions to those problems can come by inspiration from other companies with similar offerings, or just keeping a lookout for what other people are doing to just be inspired. And so, yeah, having, well, and the other thing is, as when you are in a space that is competitive in nature, or that, like there are competing offerings, developers are going to come to you asking you how yours is different. And so you need to be more than conversational about those things. You have to understand what those offerings can do. And so, yeah, staying up to date with what the competing products are capable of, I think is important, so you can talk with developers about what makes you unique, and be inspired by what your competition is, how your competition is solving problems for their customers.
Okay, thank you. Tejas, glad that you could join us, and welcome back to our space. While you're here, may I just ask a question for you, Tejas? In being a good DevRel professional, how important is personality or charisma, or maybe what qualities are that a good DevRel professional possesses?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, hi everyone, by the way, it's nice to be here
Yeah.
on this panel. Yeah, that's a great question. I think charisma is a part of it, but it cannot be the whole thing, right? Because like if you have, we've seen history show us like cults, like really bad institutions that start with a lot of charisma, but then go the wrong way. I think really important qualities for DevRel leaders. I think if I condense it, actually, one of the most important qualities for a DevRel leader is to be highly communal and highly relational, such that I feel like sometimes as a DevRel leader, I'm inclined. So I represent a database company, DevRel wise, and there's sometimes a pull, a capitalist pull to say, hey, we're better than the other guys because they're slow or whatever. But that doesn't really help anyone. It maybe helps us in the short term, but in the long term, I do believe we'll go further if we go together. So I think for a DevRel person, a really valuable trait is is a quality that is highly relational and values community and relationships above all. So when somebody comes to me and asks me about my product, if it's not a good fit, I tell them, hey, actually, Planet Scale is a better fit for you. And if
Hmm.
that's not the case, if we are a good fit, then it's really like investing in that person and their company and their team because we're highly relational. So I think the relationality is a huge attribute for DevRel success.
Okay, thanks. Raza, your virtual hand is up. You got a comment on this?
Yeah, I think thanks. And I think this is super interesting. So I think the most valuable skill,
Hmm.
or maybe personality, because you said, there's a DevRel need to be charismatic. I think what a DevRel needs, like to add on what Tejas, I hope you pronounce your name correct, to add on to it, what's very important is someone being genuine. So I think the one thing that DevRel is not, it's not marketing. But I think DevRel is often misunderstood as marketing.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
trust me, like developers are not stupid, and your audience is not stupid. So if you're just shilling your product, that's not gonna work. So genuine interest, I know it's fake, but I think being genuine, there present in the community, a genuine interest, that's so valuable. And you can note, hey, are you interested in my project? Are you interested in how I use your product? And being, showing that interest and then forming a dialogue around that, I
Hmm.
think that's like super valuable in my experience.
Yeah, and it's like it's in the name, right? DevRel relationship. It's not like dev adoption. That's a whole different thing. So like I
Hmm.
agree. Like it's about the relationships, not
Yeah.
necessarily increasing adoption.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I would expand on that too, and just say, in my experience, focusing on authenticity and transparency is just like there's a lot to do with trust, because you're telling people when people come to your product and say, hey, I'm building something, I need a solution for X, and you say, oh well, our product is a great solution for that. There's an element of trust, because even if your product is free, like Remix is an open source web framework, and so even if it's free, it's actually not free, because it is taking some of their time and energy and learning. And so there's a lot there that they have to invest. And so your product is actually, it's not free. And so there's an element of trust when the developer decides that they're going to try out your product. And so that trust is built by transparency, authenticity, genuineness. And as just anecdotally, I've been so much happier, or I feel way happier when I am those things. And so I just think that it's a nicer way to live, and people appreciate the honesty.
mhm. Okay, thanks for your perspectives. Tejas, uh, I mean, for all of you, of course, question, but I read this research on the state of DevRel in 2022, and I found something interesting, that it said that the biggest challenge for DevRel professionals, even though it's growing and it's getting better, but the biggest challenge is getting internal support from top management. So Tejas, I guess question for you would be, do you think that's true for most companies, or is that the biggest obstacles that DevRel professionals face in their field, in their profession?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think personally, I've never felt like I needed to get someone's support for like DevRel to exist, or for DevRel to have a certain budget, or for DevRel to. I've never had to justify the need for DevRel
Hmm.
to the CEO and CTO, because like we're a database, and who uses databases? Developers use databases. So that relationship is key. And thankfully at Zeta, that's just been identified, right? Like this is a tool for developers. Therefore, we need good relationships with developers. So I've never had to fight for that. I have heard people in other companies. So like for example, companies like Vodafone, or companies that have products that are not developer tools. I've heard stories from them about this, but
Hmm.
I don't have that experience. I will say though, a big chunk of the challenges I face with DevRel is the
Hmm.
balancing act between, you know, being a dev advocate for the engineers inside the company. So listening to them and hearing the justifications for maybe an API that I think is not so easy to use, versus also balancing feedback from the outside and being a good advocate to the people outside the company. So this like I need the inside people to like me and the outside people to like me and to listen and support both of them. That is a challenge. I don't know if this is on the survey, but that is what I identify as quite a challenge in the DevRel space.
Okay, thanks. But that research also said that DevRel professionals, it also caught my eye, come from different areas and had previous roles as engineers, as chemists, as office managers. So, for example, Raza, do you think there's a certain background which is more suitable for the role? Obviously, it would be great if somebody was a developer, but or does it depends mostly on the individual and there's no like rule which background is the best for the job?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I wanted to also like dive a little bit into the previous question because that actually
Yeah, sure.
so I definitely come from an opposite where so I think DevRel is one of those things where a couple of companies have been super successful at it, and then everyone feels that and knows that as a dev tooling company you need to have DevRel. But definitely it's sometimes an internal struggle because again, in my personal experience, DevRel is difficult to grasp on and then difficult to have a good strategy on from, let's say, all the different parts of the organizations to understand DevRel. So I do come from a point like, I don't have to justify the existence, but you definitely need to have a good plan for the rest of the org to understand what you're doing. And the startup world maybe is like slightly different as well. So having that back and forth with management support goes definitely a long way. I don't have to justify budget, but yeah, I just want to clarify that it can be an internal struggle when it comes to strategizing. Then, your second question with regards to like background, I'm an accountant by profession, and I jumped into tech, and I kind of have like an odd way of getting into DevRel space. So I was an accountant, then I became a deputy controller, which like I had my own finance department, and then in the corporate world, I became a head of a data engineering platform, just because I was curious about tech, and then I started learning myself a lot, like evening hours. So I think that you don't need a particular background. I think developing is important. To understand developers is important. So if you have empathy, I think that goes a very long way. And I do think you need to have some coding abilities if you're like a hands-on dev role. I would say curiosity is very important, but I wouldn't. But it doesn't mean you don't need to put in the hours. You still need to put in the hours to learn how to code, learn how to develop, and learn how to demo. That's a little bit my take on it.
Okay, thanks. Kent, so what would you recommend to a company or an individual that is thinking of doing or going into developer relations? Like where to start? Like what should be the first step on Birds?
Yeah. I think the first step should be to decide if you really need it. So it's definitely like every single position in the company should justify its existence. And so developer relations is an important aspect for companies that need relationships with developers. So first of all, not every company does. And then the other aspect of it is just like developer relations needs to justify its existence in what it accomplishes for the company. And so, what is the mission of the company, and how does developer relations push that mission forward? So, I would say probably for most companies that are have developers as their customer should probably have this position at least at some point in their growth. And in particular, developer relations helps a lot with the growth story. And so once you've decided that this is something that your company needs, whether to grow or just to communicate or to identify and prioritize features and improvements to the product. Once you've identified that's necessary, then I think one of the most effective things that I've found is using your developer relations person or that person focusing on just producing really great educational content. Because when they do that, then the other end of developer relations starts happening, where people will naturally come to that person with questions. Um, and another piece of that, of course, is giving a place for developers to come together to ask those kinds of questions. The other important aspect of this too is that you want to create a space for the community to grow itself, because any developer relations individual cannot scale to the size, at least unless you've got like maybe 20 customers. But like if you're like most companies, you're not going to be able to scale to the amount of questions and help that people are going to need with your product. And so give your community a place to kind of service itself and help one another, and reward individuals who are members of the community who are selflessly helping others. And not only reward them, but also enable them, give them a reason to participate. And so, yeah, those are a couple of things I would suggest. Like, focus on building really useful content, whether or not it's 100% focused on your product. I think it probably makes most sense to have some focus on the product, but it doesn't necessarily have to. And then give your community a place to work through challenges and questions together. And then your developer relations team can be a part of that community and identify common questions and things, which will lead them to either creating content to address the question, so that people just send them links to your content, or you identify, oh, this is a problem that we actually, or a use case we don't currently support, and so you can take that back to the developer team to prioritize that.
Okay. Oh yeah, Tejas, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, just to add to the discussion about the the things that help developer relations. I was having a one-on-one today with my manager, and we were talking about mental health. And we mentioned, so I have a very mild form of bipolar disorder. And with that comes like an amplified emotional spectrum. So like when people without it feel happy, I feel usually twice as happy. So my emotions with this disorder are amplified. And I know a bunch of people in the DevRel space who have similar conditions. And so that help. I'm not saying like everybody needs a mental illness, but it definitely helps me in DevRel, because when I'm enthusiastic and excited about my product, that is an amplified level of excitement that just comes with the territory, that then I'm able to like bring a lot of hype for this thing that I'm excited about, and it's genuine. Like I think Raza was saying it's important to be genuine and authentic. And some of us have the benefit of being overly excited, but it also being genuine instead of being something that's forced. So just a shout out to my friends with mental health issues. Like it can also manifest itself in a positive way.
Yeah, really. I never thought about that. And thank you for coming out with that. It takes courage, I'm sure. Raza, just you're coming to the Infobip Shift this year as a speaker. You will be speaking at the Web3 stage. How important are these types of events, the physical meeting with the community for somebody who is doing DevRel in Web3 tech, Web3 space?
Oh man, this is a very good question. And actually, I've been to a bunch of events, and DevRels, we get together and we actually contemplate on the investment of coming to such a event, and like, what do you get out of it as a DevRel, and what do you get out of it as a community and as developers visiting? So I think it's very important to have these events for a variety of reasons. I think a lot of the relationships that I've built at these events, they're just not, you can just not replicate that. And to give a very tangible example is, I've met a lot of people online. We had these calls, but when you engage with individuals at these events, there's a whole other energy and a whole lot of like another level of discussion. also, very rarely will you like sit in a call for 6 hours or maybe 4 or 5 hours and have a very like in-depth discussion. And
Mm.
I had this at the event where I would be able to have a talk. People come up to me, come up with a question, or like engage in a discussion with other DevRels. And then another thing I will say is that it's very unique to talk one-on-one with developers using your platform. And the type of feedback I get there, I often contemplate how I can get that feedback like virtually while doing workshops. But someone coming up to me saying, "Hey, this in your doc doesn't make sense." I mean, I'm literally thanking that person, saying, it's super awesome that you're giving me that feedback. So I'm thinking on multiple levels, having that energy, like in real life, from a tangible point of view, getting feedback on your product is amazing. Building the relationships, and also like every other call that I have like virtually after that, after meeting someone in real life, is just different. It adds so much value. I will say one thing. I think
Mhm.
often it's difficult to translate it back inside a company because a lot of these values are intangible. So making it tangible, such as making sure keeping a list of who you spoke to and gathering all that feedback is super important to quantify it for a company, because it can seem very intangible often. But yeah, super valuable from my point of view.
Okay, thank you. Great. Kent, you're coming to the Infobip Shift this year again. You're returning to the event. How would you rate our event, related to the quality and the of the DevRel content of the DevRel opportunities? What I'm trying to ask, what does Infobip Shift provide for a DevRel professional in your experience?
Well, I'll just first say, because most people listening to us are not DevRel devs, the Infobip is a fun conference, and if you are able to come, I'd love to see you there. But as far as the DevRel portion of it, there are a ton of developers there who are interested in what you have to share about your product. And so there's, definitely lots of opportunity to reach people in a part of the world that I don't think has a lot of other opportunities like that.
Yeah.
So Infobip is very unique in that way as well. So you can reach people there that that you can't really reach anywhere else. So yeah, Infobip is great for that.
Yep. Thank you. So let's try to wrap this up, if it's even possible to answer this question. To conclude some of the points that we made in this discussion, Tejas. So, is there a formula of success, and what would it be like in short, like if it exists, even in your opinion?
Yeah, this is a great question. And I think kind of listening to Kent and Raza, and your ideas even, I think really the formula for success is to be highly relational and care about community and humans as a subset of community, and really
Hmm.
seek to genuinely help, and provide value in a very tangible way. I think that's the formula for success, or at least that's a summary, the formula in a nutshell, maybe an oversimplified formula for
Hmm.
success in
Yeah,
DevRel.
yeah. Complex question, definitely. Raza, Kent, would you agree? Would you like to add something to that, like sort of a conclusion?
Yeah, I'll just add to that and say, iterating on, like, building on what Teja said, like that's definitely all true. And then I would like to add that the DevRel needs to focus on, educating. So next to all the things that Teja said, I think education is super important and a large part of success.
Mhm.
Making sure that it's extremely easy for your developers to use your platform and extremely easy to understand your platform.
Mhm. Okay, Kent, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just add, or for my formula for success, it is authenticity in everything that you do. Um, Focus on understanding what developers who are using your product are experiencing,
Mhm.
uh, and educating the solutions that your product has. I think those three things are the most important pieces of DevRel.
Okay, Okay, guys, thank you all. I don't want to take any more of your time, and I'm grateful that you could join us this afternoon, at least in Croatia's afternoon. I'm looking forward to meeting you all in person at the event in Croatia in this September, and of course, all of our listeners who are interested in joining us, check out our Twitter profile. You can find all the info on the event and how to get tickets. Thank you all, and thank you all for listening, and see you soon in Croatia.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.